I don't know about you, but I remember when Arkham Knight came out like it was yesterday. Back then, I was coming out of PC gaming, and that was the last AAA game on PC that I can remember being an absolutely terrible port. It was the first game that I can remember that was ever delisted from Steam, and I remember all of the PC gaming YouTubers' videos about it because that game was absolutely dreadful. Now, back then, I didn't have a PC that could actually run that game, so any hope I would have played it on would have been PS4, but I didn't get it back then because the PC version scared me away. And to this day, before playing this game, I know pretty much nothing about Arkham Knight. I remember how bad the PC port was. I also remember that there was a lot of controversy because of the Batmobile sections. And if anybody has watched this channel for a while, you will realize that I do not like vehicles in games. But I was worried that the Batmobile would ruin my experience, and I did go into it a bit apprehensive, but a bit more on that later. Now, just like the Dark Knight himself, this game is dark. Arkham Asylum was dark, Arkham City was darker, and Arkham Knight is the darkest of all three of the games, and it's just epitomized by the opening. It's this opening cutscene, it's this first person section where you're playing as a policeman, and you're sitting in a diner, and then you go over to this guy that's just sitting in the corner, and there you go, there's a big scarecrow face popping up in your head, and then all hell breaks loose across Gotham, and all these weird, creepy scarecrow villain enemy things just pop up, and this is a really, really creepy start to this game, and I absolutely love the story in this game, and it's for a couple of reasons. Now, I will be discussing spoilers here, so be warned. First, the Joker. Look, he's an absolutely amazing villain, and the game starts off with him getting burned, listening to some Frank Sinatra, and I couldn't think of a better start to a game because I absolutely love Frank Sinatra. But they bring him back. Essentially, he is in Batman's mind, and he's talking to him as the game goes along. He's popping up and he's making jokes and he's slagging people. And I think this would have bothered me back then a bit more because I'm pretty sure they did it in Arkham Origins as well, where Joker died in Arkham City. So then they were like, oh crap, we need to bring back Joker. How do we do that? Oh, we'll do a prequel. But here they're like, oh crap, we need to bring the Joker back. How do we do it? Oh, we'll put him in Batman's mind. And now Kevin Conroy is dead, and I think it's great in hindsight just knowing that we still got at least one more game with them together. Mark Hamill and Kevin Conroy just battling it out, talking to each other, Joker slagging him off, and Batman being as serious as ever. And at the end of the day, as much as he is used, the Joker's just a cool villain. As I said, maybe back then I would have felt differently, but now I'm just happy that I have more of this. And then how they use the villains in this game is just so much better. First of all, Scarecrow is technically like the main villain in it, and his new design is, it's absolutely fantastic. It's so creepy. His skin is like melted off, and he has almost strings wiring in his mouth together. And the first time I saw that design, I was like, oh, this is so cool. Just like Cobblepot's design in Arkham City, it just stands out in my mind. And I think how they use Scarecrow throughout the game, him announcing across Gotham with his real creepy voice and just spreading the fear toxin around. And it also puts that doubt in your mind as you're playing the game that like, crap, did this actually happen? Every single thing that happened in the story, I was like, there's a chance that didn't happen because maybe Batman is infected with the fear toxin. And I think that makes for a pretty cool sort of story device where you're kind of second guessing everything, and you're almost like second guessing everything the way Batman probably should be second guessing everything, because A, he's being infected by the Joker and he's kind of going a bit crazy, and then also the fear toxin is going to mess with his mind. And I think they perfectly melded that, like what Batman is going through and what the player is going through, which is really cool. And one of my favorite things about the story here, and I only really realized this in hindsight, and I didn't really make this a criticism of Asylum and City, but Asylum and City don't really have any personal stakes. Yes, Batman can die in them, but I mean, in my mind, I'm like, is Batman really gonna die? Like, is he going to die in Arkham City? I don't think so. Maybe he could have, but you know, that's not really a danger. And to be honest, he doesn't really have that much sort of personal stakes in it. But here right at the start, Barbara Gordon, or Oracle, gets kidnapped. And then it kind of gives you that personal stake. Not only do you have the Batman interactions with Robin, because Robin is in a relationship with Oracle, you also have to deal with him and Jim Gordon, who is Barbara's dad. And then obviously you just have to deal with Batman's relationship with Oracle. Obviously, she used to be Batgirl. I assume in this universe she used to be Batgirl, now she's Oracle. So he trained underneath her. Obviously, he has a relationship with her, and he likes her, and he obviously doesn't want her to die or get kidnapped. So I think here it's like, there's just a bit more personal stakes involved, where there's a slight bit more emotion. Now, I'm not coming to Batman for emotion. He's almost emotionless. But it was nice to actually have a couple of moments in the story that I won't show. I am sort of spoiling it, but I don't really want to show too much. But there's a couple of moments where Batman breaks down. And it's nice to see that this man, who is a 6'4", 200-pound absolute unit, still has emotions. And then we get into the open world section of this game. And the map is slightly bigger than Arkham City. And honestly, at the start, I was worried that the map would have been too big. But my worries were put aside when I realized that the map really isn't that big. They still, even in a world where games got super bloated and maps were absolutely ginormous and they just needed to fill the maps with crap and objectives and this and that and blah blah blah, here they still restrained from it, just like in Arkham City. It is slightly bigger, but I still appreciate just how contained. Like, I beat this game in 16 hours. I did a fair bit of the side missions and I just had a great time doing it. And how you traverse the open world is just improved, because let's face it, the gliding in Arkham City was fine, but after playing Arkham Knight, the gliding in Arkham City is terrible. Because if anybody did any of the AR challenges in Arkham City, trying to glide through them obstacles was near impossible. It was, well, not near impossible, I'm kind of exaggerating, but I was definitely tearing my hair out trying to beat a couple of them. But here Batman just controls so much smoother. You have the super glide that he had in the first one, but it just feels better. Every single thing about traversal, about combat, about stealth is just improved. The gameplay perspective of this game is just massively improved. And as I was going through this, I was kind of battling with myself on what I prefer. Did I prefer City? Did I prefer Arkham Knight? And I could sit there and say Arkham Knight has a better story, which I do think. Arkham Knight obviously has better graphics. This game to this day is still absolutely gorgeous, just like Arkham City is. And then the combat was much improved. You're given so much more to do in it. Also, they get rid of that stupid little D-pad menu with all your gadgets. You know, have a radial menu, which is a lot better. But as I was going through this, there was something in the back of my mind about Arkham City, where Arkham City doesn't feel like a modern open world game. Now that is a symptom of it being a game that came out before the modern open world style was really established. They were still trying to figure things out. And to this day, I think Arkham City has a bit of a unique feel. It doesn't exactly feel like an open world game, where I think Arkham Knight does feel like an open world game. And I'm really struggling trying to articulate this point, because it's just a feeling in my head that I can't really put I can't get on the tip of my tongue what exactly is the reason why I believe this. There's just something about having a map with a lot of objectives. They still do have a fair few objectives in this. A lot of the AR challenges are littered around the map. But then there's also the sort of the quests in this game, where you have the main quest, totally fine. The main quest is fantastic. But then you have the side quests that are on a radial menu. And there was just something about that just made it feel like a bit more of a formulaic open world game. And a lot of the side quests, while they gave you some good dialogue, like some brilliant dialogue with brilliant villains, a lot of them did feel very formulaic. Like Cobblepot's one are go up to a van, put a tracker on it, chase that van, go to this place, kill a lot of enemies, blow up a cache, and then leave. And that was Cobblepot's missions. The best side missions are, to me, Langstrom's side missions, mostly because I was kind of fascinated in that story, because I don't really know anything about Dr. Langstrom. And just in general, these games are just brilliant ways into the Batman universe, where you're going to learn different things about all the different villains, and the villains are absolutely fascinating. And then, of course, the Riddler ones, where the Riddler has Catwoman locked up, and you have to do these series of challenges to get her out. Now, the only problem is with this side quest, and I understand why they did this, is that I didn't actually finish it. I did all the main quests, but then you get to a stage where the Riddler gets into this cool machine. I'm like, oh, I'm going to have a cool fight with the Riddler. But then he just disappears and he goes, oh, you're going to have to solve all the Riddler challenges if you want to get to me. But there's God knows how many Riddler challenges, hundreds of them, and I'm not doing them. I'm not doing these Riddler challenges, find random Riddler trophies. That's just not what I want to do in an open world game. And that is a shame. But yeah, there's just something slightly formulaic about it. Again, I can't really put my finger on it. I don't know. Let me know in the comments down below if you agree, because if you've recently played City and then recently played Knight, I still love Knight. To be honest, I love all three of these games. Arkham Asylum is my least favorite, and then I think Arkham Knight is my favorite, with City being a second, like very, very close to it, because Arkham Knight just feels so much better to play. And then obviously we'll have to talk about the Batmobile, which, as I said, I was a bit worried about. Let's be real, I don't like vehicles. This vehicle controls really well. Driving it is fine, but then you get into the combat mode and it becomes like a third-person shooter. And I know, if I remember correctly, I remember hearing people say, oh, like, why does it control like a tank? It's a car. But it just feels so good to control. When you go into that battle mode, it's so easy to initiate, so easy to shoot things, to dodge, to maneuver around, to use your missiles. And even when you get into like the driving sections, when you're doing the Riddler races, which are some of my favorite challenges in the game, they can be slightly frustrating because sometimes the Batmobile's physics are quite heavy and you'll end up falling off the map. But those races are just really fun, like driving through, and then you have to like open and close the gates to get through them, and then as you go through the laps, they just get harder and harder. And I think these were a great challenge. And then with the Batmobile, there's a section where it's like, oh, you need to get the Batmobile up to this power generator, but it's on top of a building. How are you going to do this? Now, what you're probably thinking is, this is Batman. He delivers everything on the Batwing. Just pick up or even just use the Batwing. No. Instead, you have to do Batmobile platforming sections, which took me by surprise, but also felt okay. Like, to be honest, when I saw you have to get the Batmobile up to a building, I was like, oh, this is going to be rough. But for whatever reason, they just pull it off. It just feels good. It feels good to launch off a ramp and land, and then go into tank mode to maneuver around, and then use a winch to like scale up the building. And then later on down the line in the Riddler quest, they use it like quite interestingly, and in the main story too, where you're rappelling down this like open circle or cylinder, I guess, that you're going down, but you have to like move tracks to line them up. So when you're on the wall, you're like turning left and right to move the tracks to line them up, so then you can leave an opening so that you can fly into it. And then the whole reason is because you need to get the Batmobile down to the bottom because it needs to shoot something that you can't get past. And they just, I don't know how, I don't know why. Rocksteady are obviously very, very good developers. They've made 3 of the best superhero games ever made, and they're just a special studio, and I really hope Suicide Squad is going to be good. But for whatever reason, they just made the Batmobile feel good. And I mean, hats off to them. I was expecting this video. To be honest, in my first 5 hours of playing this game, I was like, oh crap, the combat much improved, stealth much improved, the open world looks fantastic, some of the side quests are brilliant. But then I got into the Batmobile and I was like, I don't want to be in the Batmobile. But guess what? They made me a believer. They made me a Batmobile believer. And I think that is the ultimate, like the end goal of this review. Batman Arkham Knight story is absolutely fantastic. It does some very interesting things. I know I said I was going into full spoilers, and I did spoil certain things, but the ending sequence of this game is just so weird. It doesn't make sense, but it does make sense because of the fear toxin. But how they do it, it's just so weird. Kept me on my toes, and I was hooked on the story of this game. Not only that, flying around the world was fun. Using the Batmobile, as I established, was just so fluid and easy. And I need to highlight this. Every single time, it's just the attention to detail in this game. First of all, Batman's cape physics, fantastic. But every single time you summon the Batmobile from wherever you are, it makes sense where it's coming from. It doesn't just come out of thin air like the Bat Cycle in Gotham Knight, which is a video I might do later on. I'm playing that game. Gotham Knight sucks. It's absolutely shy. But here, when you press L1 to summon the Batmobile, it makes sense where it's coming from. It feels believable. It doesn't just magically come out of thin air. But yes, Batman Arkham Knight is an absolute must-play superhero game. It's an absolute must-play open world game. It's an absolute must-play character action game. Well, not really a character action game, is it? No, it's not. That's going to be a far. But it is a must-play game. I genuinely had an absolutely fantastic time playing this game. And yes, there were times when I was thinking about, like, oh, I'm not really enjoying this. But the payoff at the end was brilliant. And as I said, they made me a believer in the Batmobile. So yes, that's Arkham Knight. That's the Arkham trilogy done. Next, I'm hoping to make a Gotham Knights video, but don't hold me to that because you cannot force me to play Gotham Knights. Please, please. As I said last year on my tier list, I gave Gotham Knights its own tier. It was that bad. And while I don't think it was as bad as I thought, it's still a terribly made game and it's not fun. So I probably will do a video, but it mightn't be a full review after in 2024. So thank you everybody for watching. If you haven't already watched the other Arkham videos, go watch them, please. Don't forget to subscribe. See you all on the next video. Goodbye.